Freedom elementals, the last category of elementals. This is a category of elementals which is unique in a way to create a empirical secular model of the mind. This category of elementals is not necessary. In fact, those who are not believers can remove this category of elementals from the heat model. But those who are believers like me, they will feel the model is more complete with this category of elementals. This category complements the otherwise structural model that heat is. The structuralism of heat converts itself into an open structuralism because of this category of freedom elementals. Let us look at what they are. This is what we have always been doing, that we revise all the elementals of the heat model, and we say all elementals in the heat model can be divided into three groups: structural elementals, functional or process elementals, freedom elementals. And the process elementals can be further divided into motivational, generic operational, faculty, characteristic, resultant, and accumulative. We have seen all of them what they are, at least to the extent of first introduction. As we go along, using them, talking about them, elaborating them, defining them, it will become more clear how the model operates and what these elements stand for. In this session, a short one again, we are mentioning what are the freedom elementals. Freedom elementals are 5. We can have more as we go along. We'll discover more probably. Freedom elementals are those elementals which are not causally determined in the normal sense of the term. They are not, to use Lacanian language, this is a parole not determined by the lung. Five have been enlisted here: free will, which is free will of the individual and the free will of everyone else; spontaneity of the individual; grace of God; grace of more evolved beings; if you believe, even grace of suprahuman beings; accidents that happen; and a conscious goodwill of somebody towards us. All of them have an influence on the way we experience life and on the way events happen in our mind. And these 5 elementals are what I term as the freedom elementals. It is a freedom from the structural constellation that otherwise is causally determining of the events. So this is an area which is not determined by law. It's an area of freedom. And this makes this model a psychophilosophical model where it's a philosophy which is a synthesis of determinism and freedom. It's almost 75-25. 75% of determinism, 25% of freedom. One can have a different take on the proportion of how one views the reality to be working. But to start off this model discussion, we will start off with these 5 elements. And we can see them in pathology in the sense, if somebody uses his will very consciously and starts making the will more integral, on the side of healing, the results are very different. Similarly, the conscious goodwill of somebody, when we appreciate, in our language, we see a good, reliable, stable object, and that's very healing for us. And mostly it is from the side of the therapist. Grace is very important. We see the same thing does not apply, and suddenly the same thing starts working. Now, this grace is something apart from the exhaustion of the law of karma. So, this grace can come from God or from Guru or from somebody who is spiritually more evolved or more powerful or mystically more powerful. So, these are the elementals, which are the freedom elementals. Those who are not believers and strictly want an empirical model can just keep free will and spontaneity and accidents and remove grace and conscious goodwill. Even then, this model would work fine. But the best part about freedom elementals is it, even if you take a secular aspect of freedom elementals, it still converts a structural approach to an approach of open structuralism. So with this, we come to the end of the first listing of elementals, and now we will go towards, in the next session, the structure of the psyche. How all that we have discussed comes together and works in a framework. A few statements repeated again. I had said this before, that the list that we have put forward is not a comprehensive list. There can be derivative elementals from the elementals that we have discussed. Two of them can come together to create secondary elementals, and the secondary elementals again can come together to create tertiary elementals. We are not discussing yet the forces, because we don't really know exactly what forces are at work, neither psychological nor biological. We are also not going deeper into genesis or purpose at this stage, except to mention it briefly in the philosophy of the model. We are not going to go into a elaborate philosophical discussion of genesis in ontological terms or purpose in the teleological terms. So with this, hope, resourcefulness, comprehensiveness, richness, and the limitations of the heat model, we will go forward now into the structural constitution and working of the full heat model in the next session. Thank you.